What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost, and Alec Baldwin continues to run his mouth. Alec Baldwin continues to try to play the victim, and Alec Baldwin continues to try to deflect all the blame that he can in this situation for what happened on the set of Rust, where he shot and killed Helena Hutchins and injured the director Joel Souza. We have seen the entire mainstream media put a lot of blame on the very young, very inexperienced armorer, and rightly so to an extent. She should have had much more control over the situation than she did. We've seen Alec Baldwin himself try to put a lot of the blame on the assistant director, who reportedly is the one that handed him this gun. But Alec Baldwin has played the victim, doing a press conference and saying, well, I can't speak about it, while proceeding to speak about it. This man said that sheriffs had ordered him not to speak about the case, yet he's making statements to the media, while saying, well, I can't really talk about that part, but I'll tell you about this. He's retweeting things, placing blame on other people, talking about the case. And now he has gone to Instagram, where a whole defense for everybody on the set has been laid out, and Alec Baldwin's tweeting out and saying, you need to read this, as my nerdy home puts right here. So Alec Baldwin wants you to read this. So why don't we read it? This is from Therese Magpale Davis. Alec Baldwin simply posts 8 things, 8 pieces of paper, 8 little screenshots, I guess, to his Instagram saying, read this. Well, I guess we're going to do that. Let's read it. I'm so sick of this narrative. I worked on this movie. The story being spun around us being overworked and surrounded by unsafe, chaotic conditions is bullshit. We never worked more than a 12.5-hour shoot day. That was once. Most days were under 12. The day Helena died, we had come off a 12-hour turnaround after 11-hour shoot day. We had, including camera, gotten off by 6:30 p.m. We just had a 56-hour weekend right before. No one was too tired to do their jobs. This is all provable by daily timesheets. Why don't you show them then? You didn't show them. The camera crew had hotels. They just didn't feel they were fancy enough. Not that they were unsafe. You can't tell me that 6 big men felt so unsafe in their hotel, but were fine sleeping in their cars in parking lots, which never happened, like they also claim. So now you're starting to have people set the narrative. From the beginning of this, even before this happened, before this accident happened, there were people that were complaining about working conditions. In fact, the camera crew walked off hours before the shoot because of working conditions and safety concerns. That has all been reported. That has all been sourced. That is all pretty clear as day. Now you have someone that is coming out and trying to set a different narrative, and Alec Baldwin very much wants you to believe that. Alec Baldwin wants you to believe that this set wasn't chaos. He wants you to believe that he had full control of everything, when so many of the reports that have come out, even before this tragedy happened, do not indicate that that's the case. But let's continue on. They were given hotels. Half of them didn't even use them because the hotels were nicer. We were getting off so early each night. And our set was only 35 minutes from Albuquerque. Santa Fe is an hour from Albuquerque, but the set was 25 minutes south of that. So they weren't even traveling that far to go home. They tried to renegotiate their contract halfway through the show, hold out producers over the barrel by walking out. They literally said they deserved more money and nicer hotels than the rest of the crew because they were better. These guys were not heroes. They only cared about themselves. Again, provable. It's provable they only cared about themselves. When you start to see this language from people like this, I don't know anything about this person. Nothing at all. But I do know they're using a lot of language that I wouldn't consider necessarily reliable. And when it's all about these guys just thought they were the heroes and better than everyone, it's kind of SJW language, not going to lie. That's what it's starting to sound like to me. The producers who supposedly don't care about their crew have worked tirelessly alongside us. They were some of the most approachable and warm producers I'd ever worked with. Yeah, that's exactly what people say about Alec Baldwin. Exact opposite. The people that I've talked to say that Alec Baldwin was kind of a fucking pain in the ass to work with, not just on this set, but in general, but especially on this set. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. Concerns were heard and addressed. Even these camera jerks were being heard, and they were being given what they asked for so many times till it became too much. Some of the producers waived their entire fees to make sure we could make this movie and pay for things like hotels for everyone. And before you say that's because they had back-end deals, no. Several of them did not. They worked longer hours from the crew and did it for free. The producers worked for free. That's what you're saying. Interesting. We had a union rep. He finally told production not to give in to the camera crew because they were demanding things the union does not require. And they were trying to negotiate a contract halfway through shooting. It's called negotiating in bad faith. The production was given permission to hire off the union overflow list for some of the camera crew the next day. I can't understand why Atlanta people were joining the whole "they hired non-union" horror and shock expression. We literally only have to pay our money to join the union in Georgia. You can be union in Georgia with less experience than any of the people on Rust were. In New Mexico, they have an overflow list. They join when they apply to a union. They have to get a certain amount of days worked on a union before they're eligible to join. This is getting into a lot of semantics about union versus non-union. And they're saying they had union approval to hire. Now we get to the armorer. The armorer had apprenticed to a well-known armorer and had been in the same position in the same type of movie a few months before. Yeah, the first time she'd ever done that, where there were safety problems on that set. Was she the most experienced? No. Were her qualifications typical for a tier 1? Yes. You can say what you want about even lower tiers needing qualified people, and I'll agree. But how do you suppose anyone will get that experience? We all had first and second job at one point. That is true, and I will give them that. And this was a pretty low-budget job. But it's clear there were concerns that everyone should have had with her. How do you suggest producers and UPM sort out the people worth giving that shot to from the people who just look good on the resume? Because Hannah had both. The misfires were accidental discharges, which are more common than you think. That should be something that we're worried about. Yes, there's a difference. And the guns were checked immediately afterwards. The discharges were announced on set and apologized for. Well, as long as someone apologizes for accidentally discharging the weapon, blank or not. We had several safety meetings, sometimes multiple per day. Our assistant director never seemed flippant about safety. He may have been in other shows, but he wasn't like that in ours. Obviously, he screwed up majorly that day. This is where the blame starts to get put on the AD, and her anger starts to get put on the AD. He was stressed because the camera crew walkout had us... Where is it? An hour and a half behind, and he had the most horrible call he could make. I am heartbroken and furious that he did so, and I will never get the sound of that gunshot or my director's screams out of my head. My friend is dead. Am I angry with him? Yes, but I won't jump on the bandwagon and pretend that he was uncaring about our safety the whole way through. However, you did basically place the blame for this on his shoulders. That's what you just did, and I think that's important. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of people associated with Alec Baldwin that he promotes saying the same thing. There's a particular reason for that. I think you can all understand what I'm saying. I've asked my producers why they haven't defended themselves more. Their answer has been they want to focus on Helena. Yeah, Alec Baldwin, while playing victim, while doing photo ops for the press to show how upset he is. Yeah, really the focus on Helena there. Okay. Whatever you say. Making political commentary on Twitter, then protecting his account when he gets backlash. Okay. That's focusing on Helena. Okay. If that's what you say. They said there would be time to defend their reputations later, that it's not important to do that right now. It's important for the crew to be okay. These are not studio producers who see us as walking dollar signs. They cared about us while we all worked together and continue to care. They continue to call and check up on the crew. They continue to pick up the phone for any of us who call them. They're people. I'm all for getting better work conditions. I've gotten in 2 car accidents from being worked too hard, and I know what it feels like. This wasn't that. Here is the kicker. This is all about gun safety. Something we could all stand to learn a little more about now that we're seeing something's off. I know that's not as much fun to jump on as vilifying producers. Personal responsibility is the last thing anyone wants to focus on in a tragedy. But if I look at what I could do differently, I'd learn more protocols, call them out if I saw they weren't followed. I'd ask to see the gun cleared if it was about to be handed to an actor and I hadn't seen the proper procedure. I'd call out an AD who was handling a gun to an actor, but not because it's my job, because I never want to lose someone like this again. I'll fight for better gun safety on set in Helena's name. I'll fight to never have a live gun on set in her name again. I'll fight to have our armors have higher standards they must pass to be in a position where they hold all of our lives. But I'm not okay with using her to be the poster child for better hours. We had exactly the kind of hours we all say we want. And I think that gun safety and getting guns off set is going to be a big focus of what we see in terms of Rust, from the actors, from Alec Baldwin, from everybody in the next few months. They're going to want to put the focus on we weren't safe enough. These weapons are too dangerous to have around. That's the way they're going to try to shift a lot of the blame. Before you send those letters to Thomasville producers, what you think of them for hiring non-union, you might want to wait and find out what the majority of us feel like who worked with them. Remember, the ones who run to the press first aren't always the most reliable, but you are. You run to the press second. So you're more reliable than they are. Got it. Most of us are grieving very deeply and want nothing to do with the press. Not to mention we're trying to cooperate with an investigation. Many of you could remember what it's like to work on a tightly knit indie set and realize those producers are just as wrecked over this as the crew is. Maybe you could just not be one more person with a pitchfork and a mob that has no idea what you're talking about because you weren't there. So there's the entire statement. Alec Baldwin, although we can't talk about it. I can't talk about it. The sheriffs, they told me I can't talk about it. I just can't talk about it. Next question. Feels very free to share information on social media to pass blame and come to his defense while he says, I can't talk about it. So he wanted you to read that, so I read the entire thing out for you. Because evidently it's very important that Alec Baldwin knows that you know that. Let me know what you think about this entire statement about Alec Baldwin sharing it after he protects his Twitter, after he gets backlash, after he plays the victim. What do you think about what Alec Baldwin wanted out there? Let me know in the comments below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.